Angela wanted. So I'll go on for 1 or 2 pages and then say, look, I can talk about this, this and this, and what do people want me to talk about. But I will at least continue to the point where I do actually cover that stuff about inequality that Angela was thinking of. Now, there's institutional political economy, a body of thoughts that originated in the works of Thorstein Veblen. Now, it's saying that economics cannot be separated from the political and social system within which it is embedded. It focuses on understanding the role of human-made institutions in shaping economic behaviour. Now, conventional economics cleaves off personal decisions from market interactions. It says to reflect on these decisions is a value judgment, no business of economics, though I've actually said, look, a lot of normative values do actually slip in by sleight of hand, which I've already identified. Institutionalists say that decisions about what and how we consume are in a social context, which is important to understand what's going on. Now, Veblen developed terms like conspicuous consumption and vicarious consumption, and these days we have terms like luxury goods and positional goods. Now, you would normally say, here is supply, here is demand, here is the equilibrium price between them, and another thing you would actually say is like, the more you have of something, the less worth it is to you. So it's nice to have 1 ice cream, it's not double that worth to have 2 ice creams, it's probably 1.8. And well, depends on how much you like your ice creams. But I tend to think after you've eaten 10 ice creams one after the other in a row, you might be having second thoughts about the 11th. Is that fair to say? Or is it? Anyway, the point is that notion is actually marginal utility theory. It is an input into a lot of economic theory. But there's different ways that is not as true. One of the things is if you have a collection, and let's just say you have coins from every year from like 2000 to 2010, except for 2010, and you get the one coin that makes your collection complete. Now that's going to be the one extra coin that really makes the difference. Or if you have 19 Rolls Royces and you want to show them all off, and you buy another Rolls Royce, say, look, I've got 20 Rolls Royces. Now that's being very showy with your wealth, but sometimes people want extra because they can be more showy with the wealth. And then there is a thing called positional goods, where you buy this because other people don't have it. So in a sense, the price is not a function of this natural meeting between supply and demand. This thing is made to be scarce before these interactions happen, right? So it's sort of undermining a lot of those notional things, because a lot of economic theory is about marginal returns, marginal utility, and things all morph into this wonderful equilibrium. And basically, a lot of goods really aren't like that. Maybe tomatoes at Paddy's markets are, but few things actually fit into that sort of issue. Now, I've spoken about some values. Now I'm going to go further into some values about, whether it's good to have wealth in the first place. Now, economics emphasises a material part of life, the production and distribution of material goods, and with the understanding that more and cheaper material goods are a good thing. Now, pollutants show economic impact quite clearly, but there are some benefits to economic growth. Physical wealth can mean something. A good meal, a good movie, a clean, organised and spacious house, more effective medical technology, a microwave oven which takes less time to heat, a washing machine which spins your clothes dry without the need for a wringer. The list goes on. But in contrast to such wealth, there is experiential wealth, having good friends and worthwhile discussions, swimming at the beach, the sights of a bush. Now, our life is about more than material goods and their price, but things being cheaper, it's obviously useful. How important is it? Will the pursuit of material prosperity actively undermine other things of value as compared to complementing that? Some claim that economic growth does not actually really make us much more happy. Are people happier or sadder than they were a few decades ago? How has material wealth influenced that? Another view is that we're actually all happier if we see less inequality around us. We may need some inequality to encourage people to apply themselves, competition, incentives and so on, but nobody knows how much competition you actually need or how much of this incentives you actually need. And I'm not aware of anyone doing any analyses which balance it against the fact that everyone's happiness drops when inequality increases. And there are, I can't remember the names, but there are actually a moderate number of very rich people in the US who are saying, I'm rich, I've got here, but I'm not sure the economic system, with the incentives it has, is actually the best situation, having these incentives to become more wealthy. So some very wealthy people are actually wondering about the system and the thing that brought them there. Unfortunately, they don't have their names to hand.
But Warren Buffett is one of them.
Yes, I think that, so some very wealthy people are actually wondering about the nature of incentives in the US economy. Now, inequality was actually analysed by Pareto in 1909. He actually had a power law of income. We also have Pareto's principle and so on, but he actually did some other stuff. Now, each time we look at 10 times more income, the fraction of the population with that is more like 100, and so on. It sort of scales. There's this geometric scale. So there is a myth of movement upwards. Some do, but there's this mathematical theory of inequality which says this stuff is, it's really embedded in society and is there in the background in ways that we really do not appreciate normally. And you can actually see it in this mathematical theory. So, continuing with this, now there's some valid criticisms to be made, but we do need to look at a counterpoint. One that's perhaps made in an apologetic spirit, but that's the tyranny of our own expectations, greed, competition, and our one-eyed view of the world. Now, the world is actually not good at many things, but I think it's fair to say the world's very good at generating large numbers of frustrated, pissed-off people. So, nice to think that it's good at something. So, wealth has increased, and one view is that we suffer from tunnel vision in not appreciating how things have actually improved. And we might resent the wealth of others, but there are probably people who are less well off than we are. Now, while we might bellyache about the indulgent, destructive lifestyles of those who can afford it, the economy provides us with employment. And in that sense, if we don't have a job, it's not a case of being cut off from our indulgences, but basically being cut off from being able to live a worthwhile life at all. Still, if we wait long enough, you will find people ruminating on how our materialistic lifestyle has changed our ability to get along and how it is ruining our social fabric. The thing is, a lot of people get caught up in this middle class problem, and I have a suspicion it has been talked about the last few decades. Though of course people say, oh, it's worse now. But I do think it's been talked about for many decades. And I think there may be something to this, but a lot of the analysis may in fact be middle class hand-wringing without much substance to it. So we've got to look at the other side of things, that things have gotten better in a lot of ways, and we've not actually stopped to recognise that and acknowledge that things have actually got better. Though of course there may well still be injustice in the background. Now, it does invite the counterpoint though. If economic growth does not in fact make us that happy, why are we still pursuing it so vigorously? And Keith Hart sort of made a very prescient comment. This modern religion is similar in many ways to older claims made on behalf of God. So at least I have a humanist connection here. If society is omniscient and good, how can there be so much suffering in the world? Basically, the economy is wonderful, the free market delivers, the free market makes us all wonderful and happy and so on. But we're not all happy, are we? So it's sort of like what you would talk about God.
That's not what it's about.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, so I was actually saying, I did actually talk about GDP in response to, now, okay, so what have we got here? We've got talking about waste, competition versus cooperation and behavioural economics, business and transaction realities, complexity theory, macroeconomics, productivity and growth, green economics, global footprints, significance of assumptions. Now, I've just rattled off a list, but do we actually have any priorities on what people want me to talk about? I don't think I was hoping to cover them all, and you can see I rehearsed this talk at home, and I was talking quickly and I covered it all.
James, by being the expert, you may come in here and see if there's something that he's missed that you think needs